Live true to yourself, and everything will change. Buddhist wisdom. There is a truth that very few people dare to face, because it is too painful. Most of the suffering in life does not come from circumstances, but from having lived for others for far too long. Not because we are weak, not because we are bad, but because from a very early age, we were taught that to be loved, we must please. To be accepted, we must fit in. To belong, we must sacrifice. And so, little by little, we trade away ourselves. We smile when we are not okay. We nod yes while our hearts resist. We stay silent when we should have spoken. Until one day, we look back at our lives and realize we have lived for many years, but we have not truly lived for ourselves. Buddhism calls this state ignorance, not because of a lack of knowledge, but because we have forgotten who we truly are. Be honest with yourself for a moment. How many decisions in your life were made because you genuinely wanted them? And how many were made because you were afraid of what others might think? We live in a world where approval has become the measure of worth. Social media counts likes. Society counts achievements. Families count expectations. Friends count conformity. And gradually, you begin to measure yourself through the eyes of others. Buddhism teaches that when we place our happiness in the hands of others, we willingly step into suffering. Because no one can give us peace if we do not dare to give it to ourselves. You do not suffer because others do not love you. You suffer because you abandoned yourself in order to be loved. Lesson 1: Why living for others always leads to disappointment. Imagine that you are a tree. If a tree bends with every gust of wind, it will never grow deep roots. If a tree lives only to be praised, it will collapse the moment it is criticized. Human beings are the same. When you live on compliments, a single cold glance is enough to break you. When you live on approval, one harsh judgment can make you doubt your entire worth. That is not living. That is existing in fear. Buddhism calls this clinging to external conditions one of the deepest sources of suffering. When you let others define who you are, your inner voice slowly grows silent. Your dreams become faint. Your trust in yourself fades away. And the most painful part is this: you live a life that no longer feels like your own. Mindfulness, the path back to yourself. Mindfulness is not just sitting in meditation. Mindfulness is the courage to listen to yourself in a noisy world. It is pausing to ask, what do I truly need today? Is this choice aligned with who I am? Am I choosing from love or from fear? Living for yourself does not mean being selfish. Living for yourself means being honest. Honest with your emotions. Honest with your limits. Honest with your own path. When you begin to live this way, you do not need the whole world to understand you. You only need to not betray yourself. Lesson to pleasing others is a form of self-betrayal. There is a powerful image. You cannot drink poison just to quench someone else's thirst. Yet, every day, countless people do exactly that. They say yes when their hearts want to say no. They stay in places that drain them, simply because they are afraid of disappointing others. They force themselves into a pleasant version of who they are, just to be accepted. Each time you do this, you move a little farther away from yourself. At first, it is barely noticeable. Then it becomes a habit. Eventually, you no longer remember who you truly are. Buddhism teaches that true compassion cannot exist without self-respect. You cannot give from emptiness. You cannot offer love when you yourself are abandoned. Setting boundaries is not about hurting others. Setting boundaries is about protecting your soul. Lesson 3: Let people dislike you and still shine. The sun does not apologize for being too bright. It simply rises. Some people warm themselves in its light. Some turn away. But the sun never dims because of that. Human beings are the same. When you live authentically, some people will not like you. When you are strong, some will feel uncomfortable. When you stop meeting expectations, some will leave. And that is normal. Buddhism reminds us that attachment to reputation is a subtle form of suffering. You do not need everyone to understand you. You only need to understand yourself. Those who truly belong on your path will never ask you to shrink. Those who require you to dim your light for their comfort were never your people. Lesson for self-worth does not come from validation. When you allow praise or criticism to define your worth, you hand over control of your happiness to others. Today they praise you, you feel valuable. Tomorrow they are silent, you feel invisible. It is a cycle with no end. Buddhism teaches that everything dependent on external conditions is impermanent. Only inner grounding is lasting. When your worth comes from within, praise does not make you arrogant. Criticism does not break you. You do not need a stage to shine. You shine because you live in alignment with yourself. Lesson 5: Living for yourself is not selfish. We are taught that sacrifice is noble. But no one teaches us that sacrificing until exhaustion is self-destruction. You cannot pour water from an empty cup. You cannot give love when you are depleted. Buddhism teaches caring for yourself is the highest form of service. When you are full, you give without resentment. You love without expectation. You are present without force. When you respect yourself, you teach others how to respect you. When you live authentically, you give others the courage to do the same. Lesson 6: Living by your own standards. Chasing other people's standards is like chasing the horizon. The more you run, the farther it gets. In Buddhism, success is not being widely approved. It is being able to rest peacefully with yourself each night. When your standards come from within, you are not rushed. You do not compare. You do not lose your way. Every decision becomes a form of meditation. Every action becomes an expression of truth. You are no longer living to perform. You are living to create your life. Lesson 7: Your worth was never meant to be negotiated. A diamond does not argue about its value. It shines because it is a diamond. So do you. You do not need to prove that you are worthy of love. You do not need permission to be yourself. You do not need to bargain to exist. Your worth is innate. When you stop negotiating your soul, you stop asking for permission. You stop over-explaining. You stop shrinking yourself. Peace appears. Not because the world changes, but because you return to yourself. Conclusion: Freedom begins when you stop living for approval. You were not born to be a background character in someone else's life. You were not born to exhaust yourself for validation. You were born to live fully, honestly, and awake. When you stop living for applause and begin living from inner truth, that is when true freedom begins. Not loud, not performative, but steady like a mountain.
Thank you for watching until the end of the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel to watch more interesting videos.